Hi everyone, this is German WWII Archive and I hope you're all doing well. A few days ago, I posted a video celebrating the second anniversary of this channel, you may have seen that. Again, I want to thank you all very much for watching my videos and subscribing to my channel, with a special thanks to all my Patreon supporters and people who have donated to me. I couldn't do this channel without some financial help, so again, thank you very much for that. In that video, I also explained that I wanted to do another Q&A video as a 2-year special and asked you to send me questions. I received 12 questions in total, and in this video I'm gonna answer them. I've put timestamps in the pinned comment for each question, so if you don't want to sit through all of this video, you can find specific questions there. If you have any further questions or need some clarification on my answers, feel free to write them in the comments below. The questions are in no specific order, I just picked them randomly. Also, I didn't write a script for the answers because with university and 2 part-time jobs, I just don't have that much time for YouTube, so I just didn't have the time to write an elaborate script for every answer. I hope you can understand that. One more word about the footage that you can see in the background. This is footage taken privately by a German army reconnaissance pilot, Eberhard Spätzler, in 1940 and 1941 while being stationed in Poland and Belgium. Spätzler was not a trained cameraman, rather he was just an amateur filmmaker and captured scenes of his unit, but also civilian life. The footage was shot on an 8mm camera, which explains why it's not the best quality, but it was still digitalized to full HD. With that out of the way, let's jump straight into the questions. Alright, so the first question, and again, these are not in any specific order, I just picked one randomly, is were any films done on the making of these newsreels and profiles of the cameramen and reporters? So as far as I'm aware, there are no specific dedicated newsreels or films showing the work of the propaganda cameraman. What is available in large numbers are pictures that were taken by other propaganda cameramen showing, these cameramen at work. You can see some on screen now. So these are available if you Google German propaganda cameraman or something like this, you will find a lot of these pictures. But there's no specific film or newsreel. Sometimes propaganda cameramen filmed each other. Some German newsweek have some scenes where you can just see a cameraman in action. But again, no specific thing. I've also I can't find it right now, but I remember reading some wartime German newspaper where they made some small articles, small writings about the work of the propaganda cameraman. So it was definitely reported and pictures and texts were written, but there were no film material that was specifically about the making of the German newsreel, which also has something to do with, that it was propaganda. And I don't really know, the propaganda ministry probably didn't want to show the people how they would censor and cut away half of the film material because it shows German losses and German death. So I don't really think the propaganda ministry was too keen on letting the people know how exactly the German Newsweek was being made. So that's certainly, they were praising the work of these cameramen here and there, but they weren't going into too much detail about their work because a lot of their work was, taking pictures of, destroyed enemy tanks and dead enemy soldiers, while ignoring the destroyed German tanks and the dead German soldiers. And this is not something you kind of want to be publicly known. Alright, the next question is, once you run out of German WWII newsreels, what will happen? Will you start posting reels from other countries? Now, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I don't think you've actually checked my channel out very much because I've already posted newsreels from other countries. I posted a couple of Japanese newsreels. I've recently posted a Swiss newsreel, so I have already done newsreels from other countries. That being said, the German newsreels are not the only thing that I do on this channel. I know some people think that I only upload German newsweeks, but that's not the case. I have uploaded 118 videos so far, and 39 of them are German Newsweek episodes. And I still have a lot of these German Newsweek episodes that I want to do, but it's not the only type of content that I have. I still have a lot of speeches, propaganda broadcasts, I have raw footage, I have color footage, color newsreels, there's the Deshek monthly newsreels. I also have UFA foreign newsreels. I have a lot more Japanese stuff that I wanted to do. So I don't think I will run out of material anytime soon. Like right now I have like a list of over 90 videos that I want to eventually upload. And a lot of them are German news weeks, but there's also a lot of other stuff. That being said, I will probably not do all German Newsweek episodes. I will not do all 285 episodes, but I will upload a couple more. But, even if I run out of German Newsweek episodes, there's still a whole lot of other stuff I can do. And I don't think I will do this channel forever. I think I will at some point, not now, not in the next 1 or 2 years, but I don't know, maybe in 5 years or something, I will stop doing this. And by that time, I will still have a lot of stuff. Because what people don't understand is that it's just a sheer amount of video material that was produced in the Third Reich, and the sheer amount that's still available. The German Army High Command alone produced hundreds of training movies. There are, at least 5, 6, 7 different type of newsreels, monthly newsreels produced for foreign countries. A lot of organizations had like their own newsreels. For example, the RAD, the Reichsarbeitsdienst, they had their own newsreel series. I still have like dozens of Japanese newsreels that I want to do. A lot of raw footage stuff. So, I will not run out of material anytime soon. Don't worry about it. Moving on to the next question. Why do you sometimes upload only a single scene from a Wochenschau instead of the entire episode? For example, the Kursk video is just Deutsche Wochenschau 672, so why not upload the full episode? There's actually a number of different reasons why I sometimes do that. And you're absolutely right. A lot of my videos are just, some scenes cut out from a German Newsweek. The main reason why I do this is because sometimes I find a German Newsweek episode that has like one scene that I find interesting, but the rest is just boring to me. The one that you mentioned, the one that has the footage from Kursk, it has this like really long section about Kursk and then a couple of other shorter sections, and I just don't find them all that interesting. So I just cut out the interesting bit, and I think the one that's interesting for people to watch, and not translate the entire episode. Because I just think the rest is just boring. Then there's also, I think people want to see like Kursk footage, maybe just type in YouTube search Battle of Kursk, German footage or whatnot, but they will not type in German Newsweek number 672. So it's also like, it's easier to find for people and it's more to the point. Another thing is that, because I know from the YouTube statistics that a lot of people, they don't really watch a whole lot of a German Newsweek episode. They just watch like the first couple minutes and then they click away. And this is completely fine. But the problem is that a lot of like the interesting footage in the German Newsweek is usually more towards the end. So if like only 10 or 20% of people actually watch the Newsweek all the way to the end, and the interesting footage is at the end, a lot of people won't see it. Especially because the German Newsweek usually starts with some kind of like civilian news or economical news. And, especially in some German Newsweek episodes, it starts with like a concert, which of course back then was really important, but nowadays not a lot of people are interested in listening to like an old recording of classical music. So they will just see this and then they just click away because they want to see like battle footage and tanks and planes and not some old conductor, performing an opera. So, by cutting out specific scenes, it's sometimes, it's just like better for video. That's like the main reason. The second reason is also that sometimes I just don't have the time. Again, I'm a full-time university student. I'm working 2 part-time jobs. And, sometimes I just come home Friday evening completely, exhausted. And then I'm like, oh, I still have to do a video for YouTube. And then it's just easier to cut out like a 3 or 4 or 5 minute long section, which I can just do in a short amount of time on Saturday or Sunday and upload it. Instead of like doing an entire full-fledged 25-minute German Newsweek episodes, which would take me, considerably longer to make. So it's also just a time problem. Sometimes I actually want to do the entire episode, but I just don't have the time for it. So that's also a thing. But, you can change that. Go to my Patreon and subscribe. And if a lot of people subscribe, I have more time for videos, I guess. No, you don't have to. But, so that's basically the main reasons for that. That being said, if I upload only a specific scene, it doesn't mean that I will never upload the whole episode. Maybe I will do that at some point. But that's the answer to your question. Alright, the next question is, were newsreels in Germany always shown in the square aspect ratio? And the simple answer is yes. back then, movies were generally shot in something called the Academy Ratio, which is named after the Hollywood Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science. And this academy introduced a standard movie ratio for 35mm films. This ratio was 1.375 to 1, usually abbreviated as 1.37 to 1. And this was standardized in 1932, and it was kept until, I think, the 50s, the early 50s. And so basically every studio films that were shot with the 35mm camera back then were shot in that ratio, and that was also taken over for the German WWII. So yes, they were shot in that ratio. Here are some pictures of like cinema screens, and you could clearly see the square aspect ratio. And so yeah, it was definitely always shot in that ratio, 1.375 to 1, and was also shown in that aspect ratio. That was the standard for movies at that time. Originally, it was actually 4:3 aspect ratio, but then when sound became a thing, sound movies, they added the sound file, or the sound was added on a magnetic stripe to the film roll, so they needed like a different aspect ratio, and then they just came up with the 1.375, and because the dominant role that Hollywood had and still has in movie making, it was just taken over all over the world. So when the Hollywood Academy decided we're going to introduce 1.375, everyone followed suit, and Germany did so too. And that's the reason why the German WWII are also always shot in that aspect ratio. The next question is there any German news bulletin video depicting Western European countries under their occupation from 40 to 44, depicting how occupied people lived under their regime? Yes, I would definitely recommend you watch the Deschek monthly newsreels. I have uploaded 2 of these so far. You can find them on my channel. They show a lot of footage from civilian life, both within Germany, but also within occupied countries, but also within neutral European countries. And then again, if you just look through the German WWII, a lot of them will feature scenes and events, like some sports events, cultural events, but also, of course, of a lot of propaganda events from occupied countries. Keep in mind that this is all Nazi propaganda. So, of course, these are only scenes portraying, the occupied countries as prospering and then being happy with the German occupation, of course. But yeah, again, I would definitely recommend you watch the Deschek newsreels on my channel for that. They contain a lot of these civilian life footage. And on to the next question. Apart from the official German archive website, is there any efficient way to find Wehrmacht training films? Now, you've already mentioned the Federal German Archive. They have a lot of stuff on it. Another website that has a lot of stuff is the Internet Archive, although usually in a rather bad quality, so you can try there. That being said, anything else? Not efficient. There's a lot of archives that have a lot of German World War II stuff, but it's usually not really marked, right? And a lot of the time that I spend on this channel is actually researching and searching stuff, because a lot of archives have digitalized a lot of their inventory, but they haven't really correctly categorized it, because they have like hundreds of thousands of movies, and a lot of archives, especially when it's foreign archive, they don't even have anyone that speaks German. So even if they would look through these files, they wouldn't even know what it is. And so, an efficient way, like I sometimes spend like 3, 4, 5 hours crawling through the archive websites or university websites or whatnot to find one video. So, if you just want a website where you can just type in Wehrmacht training films and everything will pop out in a nice, neat list, I don't think that this exists. That's one of the problems with running a channel like this. It's just finding material and finding this in a good quality, which sometimes takes a lot of time. But again, you already mentioned the German Federal Archive. They have a lot of stuff, although sadly not with English translations. But yeah, other than that, I'm not aware of any, so I'm sorry. All right, next question. This is Cinnamon. Yeah, hi there. What's your favorite movie, if any? So I don't really watch a lot of movies. It's just, my hobby is gaming. I play a lot of video games, but I don't really watch a lot of movies or series. I don't have Netflix or any other streaming service, and it's just yeah. When it comes to war movies, World War II movies, I've seen a couple of like, the classics. Like I've seen Downfall, which is a great movie. I've seen The Emperor in August, which is a Japanese movie that, kind of shows the events that led to the Japanese capitulation. Of course, I've seen like what's called Band of Brothers, partially, like this kind of stuff. But again, yeah, I'm not really that big into movies, so I don't really have a favorite movie. When it comes to series, though, there's one series that I've really liked. It's called Boardwalk Empire. Was from produced or aired from 2010 to 2014, and it's basically about it's a series set in Atlantic City during the 1920s and 1930s, and it's about mafia and the mob, prohibition, illegal alcohol selling, and all that stuff. And I just really like the series, just very well made. The characters are very good. The entire scenery is just really nice. I really like the characters' suits. So like I like wearing suits, and there's like a lot of these 1920s three-piece suits. I just think they look very, very neat. And the portrayal of historical characters like Rothstein, Arnold Rothstein, or Charles Luciano. These kind of stuff. It's just really fascinating to me. So favorite series would probably be Boardwalk Empire, but again, I don't really watch a lot of stuff, so I don't know. But yeah, generally, I don't really watch TV. I don't even have a TV at home. I only have like a computer, but I don't have a TV. So the only time I really watch movies or series when I'm at my girlfriend's house or at my parents' house. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next question. And in case my voice sounds a little bit different, I'm recording this on different days. I'm having a lot to do, university and all that stuff. So this Q&A is probably coming out a little bit later than I originally wanted to, because I just had so much to do over the last few days. But I have a few free hours now. And I can go to the next question, which is, do you play any video games about World War II? And if so, which ones they are? As of right now, I'm not playing any World War II video games, but I used to play, and I still sometimes play Company of Heroes very regularly. It's a pretty arcade strategy game about World War II, but it is to this day, and a lot of people say that one of the best arcade strategy games, real-time strategy games. There's a ton of mods for it. The graphics and the entire atmosphere is pretty impressive, especially considering it came out in 2007. So this is something that I can always recommend to people, especially in multiplayer. It's still fun, even though this came out 17 years ago, or 16. I don't know. I'm bad at math. But anyways, so yeah, Company of Heroes is always one of my favorite World War II games. I've also played the Man of War series extensively, especially the Red Tide title, which focuses on an often overlooked area of World War II, which is Soviet Soviet Navy, like naval infantry, Soviet Marines versus mainly Romanian troops, and there's like a lot of interesting weapons on both sides. Of course, you have on the one side the Soviet naval infantry, but you also have like Romanian troops using like captured French tanks and Hotchkiss guns. That's also pretty interesting. So, but the entire Man of War series is very very neat. I'm not that much into shooters. I mean, I've played a couple of like the old Call of Duty, like World at War, and some of the older Medal of Honor titles. But I'm not that much into World War II shooters, so that's not really mine. But strategy games. And there's another one that I actually have to look up real quick because I forgot it. Give me a second. Yes, Steel Division, exactly, Steel Division, which is like a more of a bigger scale of strategy game. So you command entire like battalions and units during a battle. And I've played Steel Division 2 very extensively. I really like the campaign. It's set during the Operation Bagration, the Soviet attack or the Soviet offensive in summer 44. And it's just really interesting. Like in the first mission of the campaign, you still have like all your regular troops, but then the subsequent missions are set after the Soviet breakthrough. So you only really have like the local militia, Russian police, and some reserve units, and you have to somehow hold the front against Soviet tank brigades, which is really funny and interesting to use some like French tanks from the 1930s to try and stop T-34 and IS-2 tanks. So this is also another game that I've played very extensively. But yeah, generally I'm more into like strategy games, both like on a grand scale. I've also played Hearts of Iron 4, of course, for a very long time. These kind of games I enjoy. Right, the next question is, it's a longer one. Can you please comment on or even make a video about fighting in World War II and fighting in the Donbass and the Kharkov areas where the heaviest fighting took place then and now, how the problems of the Rasputica or the Season of Mud was handled by German forces in the Donbass, and then how the Soviets themselves handled them, how the Cossacks of the Donbass became allied with the German war effort, and then their fate after the defeat of Germany in 1945. Just anything war related about the Donbass then and now. I don't want to shoot that request down immediately, but this is like not really the type of content that I make. You know, I translate original German World War II propaganda from World War II. And while all of these topics are mentioned in some episodes, there is, for example, a November 1941 episode that, you know, shows how the Germans had to deal with the mud. There are several episodes which feature Cossacks units. You know, just making like a dedicated video on them is not exactly the type of content I make. There are other very good videos and articles about it. In fact, the entire Cossacks topic is actually very well researched, so you can just Google like Wehrmacht, Cossacks, World War II, and you will definitely find articles about them and books. And of course, you know, the Donbass being an important center of Soviet steel industry was heavily fought over. I also have some German Newsweek that show fighting in the Donbass in like late 41 or early 42, 42 I think. So you just probably need to search through my German Newsweek playlist to find, you know, scenes of that. But again, you know, just making dedicated videos about this topic is not exactly what I do, so, you know, I apologize, but yeah. But again, luckily these are very well researched topics, so all you really need to do is put it into Google and you will find articles and probably also videos about this that are very well made. So it's probably unnecessary for me to make a video about a topic that is already very well researched and written about. Going to the next question, do you plan on translating any more Wehrmachtsberichte or even the Waffen-SPK-Berichte? Now there is a problem with translating written stuff in a way that it's just text, and this is boring. I mean, you know, even longer speeches most people don't listen to, so, you know, translating Wehrmachtsberichte, I mean, technically you could do this, but again, this is just like a written thing. And then, you know, like how am I supposed to upload this on YouTube? I could translate it and then just read it. And actually, I once did something similar. I translated the very last issue of Der Panzerbeer, which was like this German last-ditch newspaper from 1945. I think the 29th of April issue. I translated that one in its entirety. I translated every single article. I then read out my English translation and put it all into a video. This video is, I think, I don't know, 43, 45 minutes long-ish. I have finished it. It took me a lot of time, but I've never uploaded it because, you know, on second thoughts, the idea of me sitting there for 40 minutes reading out translated Nazi propaganda is just a little bit weird. And I doubt anyone would sit through that. You know, I could probably, if there's a specific Wehrmacht report, because, you know, I know you support me on Patreon. So if there's a specific report that you want me to translate, you know, you can just write me and I will probably do that for you. I mean, again, you know, this is directed to this guy because I know he supports me. But I don't think I would put it in a video per se, because I don't think, I mean, you know, it's probably boring for most people to, you know, just listen to some guy reading translated Wehrmacht reports. The next question that we have here is a rather very extensive one, and it's a very large topic. How do you find the videos and how do you make your videos? So how do I find my videos? Basically, a lot of this stuff is available on the internet. Now, when I say on the internet, it's not as easy as to put into Google. You have to search through archives. You have to sometimes, you know, comb through very long pages of digitalized archives. The problem is that a lot of archives have digitalized their stuff, but not in a simple way. It's not that easy to just type in, I want to see German Newsweeks in full HD. sometimes newsweeks have digitalized tens of thousands of stuff, but they have just assigned a number to it. So I've spent countless hours digging through various archive sites to, find videos that are completely mislabeled, that are sometimes not even labeled at all, just like some random archive number stuck to it, and then I just sit through it and look at it. And I've seen some stuff that was originally not even labeled as German Newsweek, but it turns out to be a German Newsweek episode. So, it's just really digging through a lot of archives. One or two archives that I can definitely recommend is the German Federal Archive. They have a lot of stuff in a very good quality. And the Holocaust Museum in the US. They also have an online searchable collection with a lot of stuff. A lot of it's like private footage, civilian footage from World War II, but there's also a lot of like wartime newsreels, both German and Allied. So I can definitely recommend the Holocaust Museum. Just type in Holocaust Museum collection on Google. And how do I make my videos? Like the technical side of it is, very simple. I just make the intro title card and then just put it in a video editor and render the entire thing. But when you're asking about my work process, so usually because there's no script or anything available, the first step that I do is transcribe the videos. I know there's transcription software, but this transcription software usually makes a lot of mistakes. And so I would have to go through it manually anyway. So what I usually do is I transcribe it manually, mostly using a recording feature. So I just listen to the newsreel episode and then just repeat it, just like say it into a microphone, and then just use that because it's way easier and makes way less errors than using transcription software. Then I translate the entire video, or like the script. Then I put it all together in a video editor, and then I go through it and look at it and write the remarks for tanks and artillery and the person appearing in these newsreels, and then I upload it. So that's the basic flow. So first is transcribing, then translating, then doing the remarks, and then of course uploading it on YouTube and timing the subtitles is another step. And that usually takes, depending on the length, of course, a few hours per video. If it's like a really long video, like 30-40 minute newsreel, this can take up to 10 hours, maybe even more. But if it's a short video, like only 4 or 5 minutes long, I can do it in like an hour or two. Again, depending on how much is shown and how much remarks I have to write. But that's the general flow of it. All right, we're nearing the end now. I don't know how many people are still watching, probably like 3. But these are the last 2 questions. This time I didn't get as many questions as last Q&A, which is, completely fine. Yeah, so let's do it. So next one is, does it cost money to get the footage, or how much time does one video cost you? There is no direct monetary cost associated with the videos, because most of the stuff, I've talked about this before, is in general public domain, so you can do with it whatever you want. There is, of course, and this is one of the prime reasons why I have a Patreon. There's of course the thing that the time that I spend doing these videos I can't spend on earning money. I have a quite busy schedule, so in order to make time to make these videos, I kind of have to take less shifts at my job. So there is, in theory, a monetary loss to this. That's why I have a Patreon. So if you want to support me, go and give me money, please. Thank you. But that's about it. And how much time, it really depends. Obviously, if it's like a 4 or 3 minute video, I've talked about this before, it's only going to be like an hour or 2. But if it's like a 30-40 minute long newsreel episode, this can take way over 10 hours. It really depends on what exactly the footage is, how much remarks I have to write, how long it is, how much script there is. Because sometimes you have more script in a 5-minute video than in a 30-minute video if the narrator basically talks non-stop. But if the narrator in a 10-minute video only talks like 2 times, you get the idea. So where do I find my footage? Again, a lot of different sources, a lot of different archives. The German Federal Archive has footage, the American National Archive, the National Archives of smaller countries, the Czech National Archive. Sometimes I'm also getting sent footage by viewers. They just send me something like, oh, I have this file, you want to take a look at it? So I don't even know where they got it from. Sometimes you can also find it on rather suspicious, weird websites. So, it's really, there's a lot of different sources. It's not like one singular source. Of course, this would be great if there was one source where you could just get everything you want, but as always is not the case. You need to search through, sometimes spend hours looking through websites and finding stuff. Sometimes you're also just lucky and someone sends it to you because they're just like, oh, I have this file of, or this training movie. Do you want to translate it for your channel? And most archives, so it really depends. Most archives, talking about the can normal people get access thing, most archives have like a website. So the German Federal Archive, you can just go to Bundesarchiv and then you can find it online. Similar with, for example, the US Archive, the American Holocaust Museum, which I talked about before, is a great collection. You can just access this online. But then there's of course a lot of archives that doesn't have digitalized, or that doesn't digitalize their stuff, haven't digitalized everything. Some of the stuff also can't be digitalized for legal reasons. So there is a lot of stuff that you actually physically have to go to certain archive. Obviously, it's not that easy for me to go to an American archive when I live in Germany. Yeah. And searching for individual people, if there were famous generals or officers, there is a chance that they appear. But if it's just like a common soldier, it's really, the chances of finding him in a random newsreel clip is very low. And systematically searching for it, it's also probably not gonna happen. Because you would have to look through hundreds of hours of newsreel footage to eventually find one scene where there's one guy that maybe looks like a certain person you're looking for. But again, as long as it's not a famous officer or general, there's probably not footage of them. So, I don't want to crash anyone's hope, but if you're hoping to find footage of your great-grandfather who was like a private in some infantry unit, the chances are very slim to actually find them. All right, this is the end. This is the last question of the Q&A, which comes from a good friend of mine from Patreon, who wrote, my question is, what front do you find the least interesting during World War II? This is actually an interesting question. I've never been asked that before. People always ask what's your favorite front, but they never really ask what's your least favorite front. And I think I would have to give two answers to that. The first one is North Africa, but only really in the period from 41 and 42. Because I just don't really fight all this desert fighting in this relatively boring environment. Like, in my opinion, it's a pretty boring environment. North Africa, Rommel against the British. I know for a lot of people it's very interesting, but for me, I just don't really think it is. It's just desert. It's just like a large plain. There's no real room to maneuver, because if you go too far south, you'll just die because it's too hot there, and you have to kind of stick to the roads. So basically, most of the fighting is just done near the coast. It's not really all that interesting, and just never really appealed to me. However, the fighting in 43 in Tunisia with both the Americans and the British pushing very hard on the German-Italian troops is actually really interesting to me. First of all, because there's a lot more variety with the American troops, but also, for example, you have like German-Italian troops actually fighting together against American, British, French, and all the other Commonwealth nations, like Australian and New Zealand troops and whatnot. So this is actually somewhat more interesting. You have a lot more modern tanks and weaponry. And, you have this situation where there's like the Germans are really being pushed back quite hard by the overwhelming, like the numerical superiority of the Allied force was really strong. And so this creates like this very intense defensive fighting, which I find interesting. So again, I would say North Africa 1941, 1942, but 1943, the last few months in Tunisia, is actually quite interesting to me. And then another theater that I really doesn't find interesting is the Balkans, mainly because the German invasion of Yugoslavia was over so quickly, and the Yugoslav army was not really putting up any resistance. They fought very bravely and very gallantly, but they were just hopelessly outdated. They had outdated equipment. The organization and the coordination between units from various parts of Yugoslavia was really low. It was just over so quickly. And then the partisan warfare that followed is also not really all that interesting to me. I just don't find partisan warfare all that interesting, especially considering that 90% of partisan warfare just consists of German troops killing random civilians. So, that's that. So yeah, I would have to say again, North Africa 41, 42, and then the invasion of the Balkans. I just don't find it all that interesting. And that doesn't mean that it's not a important part of history, or that I don't want to, belittle that. Everyone can have their favorite theater. It's just that for me personally, I just don't find it all that interesting. All right, that's it for this Q&A session. Thank you very much to everyone who submitted their questions. I hope I was able to give you all a good enough answer. If there's anything clarification wise, or if there are any other questions that you have, feel absolutely free to put them in the comments below. I'll try to get back to you. Or if there's any other questions, always feel free to drop them. Thank you all very much for watching my videos and being subscribed to me. If you want to further support this channel, I have a Patreon, which you can visit. There's a lot of additional footage. There's 10 exclusive videos so far, and I'm going to upload another exclusive video every month. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. Again, if you have a few dollars to spare and want to support the channel, that is always very welcomed. And a big thank you to everyone who is already subscribed to my Patreon. But other than that, I will try to continue to follow my regular upload schedule, upload a new video every week. And I'm looking forward. I hope you find the stuff that I do interesting. I'm looking forward to, doing this for at least a couple more years. And I have a lot of stuff that I want to show you. And yeah, so that's all for today. Wishing you a great rest of the day. And see you all soon. Goodbye.